Oh, hello. I accidentally hit record. Hello, my name is Nujum. This is Hearthstone. I'm going to be talking about some of the upcoming cards in the Grand Tourney expansion because everyone else has been doing it, and I thought I would enjoy sharing my thoughts as well. So let's go. Also because when the Grand Tourney comes out, I've been like saving up gold, and I want to try out some weird decks. So if you're interested in crazy ideas, expect me to be like piloting some dumb stuff at the beginning of the season. And with that, we are going to move on to the cards now. I have this sort of background thing set up that I found on Blizzard's website, and I actually found this on Hearthstone, this background image here of this guy with the shiny purple lance. Kind of low resolution. I don't really like it. I want your feedback because I want to keep reviewing these cards continuously up until the release of the next Hearthstone expansion. So do we want this guy or do we want this background? And so this is where all the cards would be. It's a little bit more plain. This is from my Titan Souls Let's Play. I've been sort of debating drawing another one of these backgrounds. I'm just really lazy. So for now, I think we'll stick with this. Although it does kind of cover up the face, doesn't it? Let's just really quickly move you so you're a little to the side. Hey, there we go. Okay, so that's the first thing out of the way. Leave a comment down below. Which one do you like better? Do you like the fancy horse guy or do you like the classic Titan Soulsy? This is sort of my background type of deal. Anyways, let's get on to the cards. Oh, second off, Hearthstone is where I've gotten this. I can't show it because of the way I set up my layout, but Hearthstone is where I got these cards. I'll probably link it in the description. In fact, I'm going to save this as a bookmark to make sure that I can link it later, and if I don't, tell me I'm an idiot and like remind me, so that's all good. Anyways, first card we're going to be talking about is Koldara Drake. This is probably one of the more interesting cards. You can use your hero power any number of times, and with the mage hero power it's especially powerful because dealing unlimited damage is like really great. I should probably mention, by the way, this expansion specifically introduces two main things. One, it's introducing a lot of really slow cards that want to survive a turn. And so what this means is that in general, cards like Wii Spell Stopper, taunts, you know, things like Sludge Belchers, things that basically protect the creatures adjacent to them or just behind them, you know, just things that protect creatures are going to gain a lot of value because of this, and maybe even silences. I'm not so sure about silences right away, but they could be useful. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. The second thing to keep in mind is that they added a new mechanic called Inspire, which is a really interesting mechanic. I don't know if you can quite read the text. It's looking kind of blurry. I might actually pause the recording and upgrade the resolution because I'm pretty sure this is set to record a certain game that I might be let's playing soon. Keep an eye out for that. Give me a sec. Well, it looks okay, but I'll try and like up the not resolution, but like bitrate and stuff. I don't think bitrate matters on local recording. Whatever. Things hopefully are a little bit clearer. Anyways, the Inspire mechanic is basically anytime you use your hero power, activate this effect. And I think this is like a really interesting ability in that it's kind of like a prolonged battle cry that's like player controlled. I really like it because it gives a lot of control to the player. That's something we've sort of been lacking in Hearthstone, and it's made the game feel kind of RNG based. And obviously there is skill in Hearthstone. Like, you can call esports and kappas all you want. There is actually a good amount of skill that goes into playing any card game. Any game in which there are RNG elements doesn't necessarily make it any less of a challenging game. And I think a lot of people have stood up for that idea already and talked about that already. So if you've never heard of that idea, maybe look up like a documentary on poker. I don't know. There's plenty of stuff online. There's plenty of smarter people who are smarter than me that talk about how RNG isn't like the bane of esports necessarily. you can find that resource on your own. But I like that it is less RNG, at least so far, and I'm enjoying it. Anyways, back to Caldara Drake. Main thing I'm looking for in this card, can you see my mouse? Yes, you can. Main thing I'm looking for from Drake is that it's a dragon, which is kind of weird, but to be honest, I don't have any dragons other than Ysera, Alexstrasza, and I have the Azure Drakes. Obviously, I have like the smaller dragons, but generally when you think of dragons, you want big dragons. I want sort of this type of dragon, sort of mid-rangey dragons. One of the problems we've sort of had right now is that all of the dragons are either 3-2, 2-3, or 10-10, you know? And having sort of this in-between card is really powerful, even if it is like just the 6-6. Like even if this gets silenced, I don't care because I can use it as, I can basically just use the dragon part of it. And I think this will be interesting for me, especially who doesn't have a lot of the dragon cards and who doesn't have a lot of Blackrock Mountain. It'll be fun to mess around with the ability, of course, but hey, mid-range dragon probably makes the dragon decks a lot better by virtue. Poison Blade. I'm gonna start with this. I don't think it's as bad as people are saying it is. Pretty straightforward. You have a 1/3 weapon, which isn't great, for 4 mana, which isn't great. Here's the thing though. Something that we learned look, when you're comparing weapons is that 3 durability is actually really valued in Hearthstone. We have so many 4/2 weapons that looking at the 1/3 immediately sort of makes you go, oh my god, what was Blizzard thinking? But here's the thing, right? Rogue, and I think other people have mentioned that Rogue is kind of in a weird spot because their hero power doesn't necessarily stack, which is a problem. When you're including things like Caldara Drake, when you're having Inspire mechanics, not being able to hero power every single turn might actually be an issue. And so Poison Blade A gives rogues a reason why they would hero power every turn, and B, they give them a base value card. Even if this is a 2/3, that's like worth 3 mana of stats in theory based on the Shaman weapon and based on just other cards in general. But also it has the potential to grow indefinitely, which is generally considered not highly, but it does lower the value of the weapon. I do agree that it could be like a 2/3 or maybe even a 1/4 or even just 3 mana. Any sort of buff could make this much better. The problem with that, and actually this is a problem with Hearthstone in general, is that, how do I say this? The measurements are big. They're like really big. Unlike, I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! That's where I learned to play card games. Unlike Yu-Gi-Oh! Where every minion has like 100, 1,000, you know, even tens you could flip around with a little bit. Hearthstone has very small numbers to mess around with. Changing this from 3 mana to 4 mana is a big deal in Hearthstone. And this is a problem with every single buff, every single nerf you'll ever see in Hearthstone. The mana cost being 3 or 4, and the stats being 1/3 or 2/4 makes a massive difference in terms of the game, just because the levers of the game are a bit big. Any change you make is going to have a big impact, and so I see that maybe they were a little bit scared with Poison Blade. I would like to see it buff, because I think Inspire Rogue could be interesting as an idea. Certainly this effect is very interesting, but beyond that, I'm not expecting too much. If I do get the card, and mind you, I'm not paying for it, I'm going to RNG pack it, right? If I get the card, I'm definitely going to mess around with it though, because I don't think it's that bad. I just think you have to work to make it work. And people get a little scared at that, but, you know, whatever. Maiden of the Lake. This is just a really strong card. I'm going to be honest. For 4 mana, getting 8 mana worth of stats is like borderline, borderline amazing, right? Like generally you want 3/5 or 4/5 at least in arena. And so like granted, when you're talking about like class cards and stuff, you want 4/5 with an upside of some sort, right? You need like Void Caller, which is like absolutely insane value. But Maiden of the Lake is like just a solid card in general. And the hero power would be interesting, not including all of these Inspire and like Poison Blade nonsense. Like on its own, this is a good card, and I actually expect to see this be played in mid-rangey decks just normally without Inspire mechanics. Like I can see this fitting in Paladin decks just like as a 4-mana card when you already have the 2 Piloted Shredders in. Now mind you, Piloted Shredder is basically an auto include in like every single deck. Like I've seen it in Zoo, I've seen it in Hunter, I've seen it in like Tempo Mage, wherever. Doesn't matter what deck it is in. Piloted Shredder takes up 2 slots in the 2 slot, and generally you don't need that many 4-mana cards. It is a strong card slot in general. There's a lot of really good cards, and I don't know if we'll see a lot of this, but definitely I might mess around with it in like control-y Paladin decks, especially is like sort of what I have it in mind for right now, but we'll see. I do think it's just like a strong card, and it's definitely going to be helpful for when you're trying to get some of these crazy Inspire cards to work, right? So, should be fun. Next is Champion Sarad. This is the first legendary we're running into, and he's insane. If you've not checked out the showcase, I don't remember where the link is. I might link it afterwards, but basically Google like Grand Tournament reveal Trump versus Amaz. Trump got this card out, and he got, I think, Koldara Drake, and he just started hero powering face every turn for like basically 2 mana draw a card, which was kind of funny. But this sort of feels like a combo to me, like a combo card. Not like as combo as Patron Warrior, but maybe like Warlock, the Murloc War Leader combo type of deal, where if you don't have other cards to work with this, it's not going to be very good. Like, in all honesty, I don't expect much out of Nexus Champion Sarad, outside of it'll be okay in some situations. Maybe it'll make like a highlight reel. If I ever got my hands on it, I'm definitely going to mess around with it, because I think having a random spell is just funny. But then it's like, oh, you got random Sacrificial Pact. You got random, I don't know, Charge, right? Not great spells. But then you can like hit stuff like Thought Steal in a Rogue versus Druid game, and suddenly the Rogue has 2 Volcanic Lumberers, right? And that sounds really like, oh, well, who cares, right? But then Rogue gets an amazing board clear with that's like really cheap because of preparation, and you get 2 really amazing, like you get this amazing tempo swing. And so there's potential for this card, definitely, but it's one of those things that you have to play in every single deck you play for like 100 games before you get the crazy dream situation, right? And even then it might not be that good. So we'll see how it turns out, but I've kind of got like high hopes, low expectations type of deal. I don't know if that's how the phrase goes, but certainly interesting card. I'm glad they're putting cards like this, that it's like, whoa, this could completely change how the game works, but it's not like immediately auto-include type of deal, you know? So we'll see how it works. Next up we have Sky Captain Crag. My throat's dry, sorry. Sky Captain Crag is a pirate, most notably. Charge! That's an amusing piece of text. Costs 1 less for each friendly pirate. So, you kind of have to imagine this on like sort of its worst situation possible, first off. And it's not great, is it? Like 7 mana, 4/6 charge. What other charge minions are there? 5 mana, you have Leroy, which is a 6/2. And basically that's like the same stat line, right? So we can say like at most you would pay 6 mana for this. And normally with charged creatures, you don't mind low attack. It just gives you like a more immediate response. What's interesting about this card is that it's not necessarily an aggressive card, even though it has charge. And I mentioned this especially because I'm looking at the pirate deck. Currently in the pirate deck, you might have something like Salty Dog. You might have something like the 2/1 that's 1 mana and has charge if you have a weapon equipped, right? Those are fairly aggressive cards. And then like in there you have value cards like the Southsea Captain, which is a fairly it can be like crazy value if you get it to land on a weapon. You get the 2/3 that gains attack depending on your weapon. That's also like a crazy value type of play. It's also like a little slow, but it's whatever, right? And the thing is, I see this fitting into more of a sort of control pirate deck, which is interesting because pirates, how do pirates win? They win because of that 3/3 that gives all their minions +1/+1. And so in theory, any pirate you put in a pirate deck would make it much, much stronger. But this pirate is in there for a reason. It's in there to give them, firstly, a strong card, just like in general, but also it's a control card. It's a card that makes a tempo play that takes over the board, but it's not going to like finish your opponent off with like some crazy 10 damage combo. At least that's the hope. So yeah, control pirates, expect that sort of playstyle to come out. Next up, we're going to talk about Thunder Bluff Valiant. I've not actually read that name yet. Inspire, by the way, Inspire again. Use your hero power, activate the ability. So Inspire, give your totems +2 attack. It has been verified, I believe, that if you use your hero power and you have this guy in play, it gives the totem you summon the +2 attack, as well as all of the other totems you would have previously gotten. This is an interesting card because it's potentially really, really powerful, but its base stats are pretty damn good. Like for 5 mana, I can think of worse things to play for 5 mana than Thunder Bluff Valiant, right? It is obviously like in sort of the spot you'd want something like Healbot, but like I can imagine sort of almost Tempo Shaman coming out just because of this card. And that sounds really weird, but here's the thing. You're gonna see this in conjecture with some of the other cards. The totem aspect of Hearthstone is about to get a pretty big buff, which is interesting. Maybe we'll talk about it more as we get into it. So we'll just move on. Hey. Ball of Spiders. I don't like it. I'm gonna be honest, people have been saying, hey, it seems okay, you know, it's basically 3/3 worth of stats, draw 3 cards. But here's the thing about Beast, and there's something you notice about the Web Spinner Brawl, is that it sort of got people thinking about the Beast, but I think it also got Blizzard thinking about random Beasts and Web Spinner as a card. And so when they put that Brawl out there, how do I say this? They recognized that getting a random card wasn't actually that big of a benefit. Yeah, it's a random beast, not a random card. But say you get King Mukla, you get Corehound, and then you get Direwolf, right? It's very unlikely that in any hunter deck you play those in, those 3 cards are going to ever be useful. Even if this really was just 6 mana draw a card, which, by the way, I would prefer 6 mana draw 3 cards to 6 mana play 3 1/1 Web Spinners, weirdly enough. I really don't know how you would, like, how you really have to make this card work for you, which isn't necessarily bad. It's certainly a fun card, and it can work. It's just, overall, it's really, really weak, and I don't know if I want to play this in my fun decks, you know? Web Spinner is a fun card, and the random beast mechanic's interesting, but it's kind of too easy to get just like given garbage, right? Like I'd much rather just run actual card draw or even card draw minions that are neutral, like Gnomish Experimenter, right? Savannah Hymane's gonna be here, Thaurissan, Sylvanas, whatever else. It's an interesting card, and it could be a lot of fun to mess around with, but I'm not expecting much. Draenei Totem Carver. Battle cry, you gain +1/+1 for each friendly totem. This is a card that is here to make something work. What is it trying to make work? Obviously the totem archetype. Totemic Might and like other totem cards have already been in Hearthstone for a while. Other totems have been in Hearthstone for a while, but they don't really have any sort of attack power, they don't have any aggressive power. And maybe more importantly than both of those, they don't have any sort of synergy. And we'll talk about the totem class maybe a little bit more on the next card, but basically this is a really strong synergistic card, similar to the Overload mechanic, that 3 mana 2/4 that gains +1/+1. That's a really strong card when you have a lot of Overload cards. This is going to be the same way, I feel. I feel like it's not going to be difficult at all to get this out as a 5/5 at least. Maybe even a 6/6, and if you're playing an aggressive totem deck, it's very likely that you get really big totem cards. Interestingly, they've not given quite enough tools to be an aggressive totem deck. Just because most of the totems right now are like, draw a card, heal for health, you know, the very controlling aspects. And that might be why Thunder Buff Valiant was put in, to give them a control totem power, right? Like Thunder Buff Valiant I don't think is meant for aggressive decks, it's meant to be control, which, hey, I don't mind, right? I don't want to go face all day every day, that's how I got through rank 20, but whatever. Interesting, at the very least. Let's scroll down a little, shall we? Oh, that's like cutting off the top. No! We don't want your... Is that an ad? Oh, that's a fancy banner. I totally didn't notice that. Is that good? That looks alright. I'm gonna take a water break. Wow, water really helps, guys. Drink water. Drink a ton of water. Oh my god. That was really nice. Anyways, here's FSG. By the way, before I say anything more, notice that there's a lot of mage and shaman cards right off the bat. I don't know why. I do know that currently there's a total of 130 cards that have been it was announced that 130 cards are coming out, and so what I'm assuming is that all of the classes are getting a similar amount of cards, and half of them are going to be neutral like it was for GVG, for Goblins versus Gnomes. So what that would mean is 65 cards would be neutral, and then the other 65 would be somehow split between all the other classes, so 65 divided by 9, that doesn't quite work out, but 63 divided by 9 is 7, so you would have around 7 cards for each class, and I would assume you'd have 1 legendary for each. So, I don't know, it's going to be interesting at the very least. There's a lot of ways you could split that, couldn't you? I guess the most logical thing would be 1 legendary, 2 rares, 2 commons, and 2 epics, obviously. So here would be the 2 totem, the shaman commons. This would be a shaman epic, this would be a not epic, rare, and then there's still 2 shaman epics and 1 shaman legendary did not be announced. That would be an assumed format, of course. I have no real data to base that on, but that's what I'm assuming based on what happened during GVG and the 130 card limit that was announced. More water. Anyways, Effigy. Crazy spell. Something I've noticed about the mage cards is that they sort of, not the mage cards, the mage secrets, is that they're sort of insane. When a friendly minion dies, summon a random minion with the same mana cost. These are especially insane in the late game, but what's really interesting about Effigy is that in a weird way, it's basically a better version of Mirror Entity, right? In that when your opponent does something, summons a minion, that's great, except before, your opponent had a lot more control over what you get via Mirror Entity. Your opponent could give you a web spinner, your opponent could give you, Spectral Spider. They could also just be kind of forced to give you Druid of the Claw because they have a really heavy hand, right? But at the very least, your opponent was making the conscious choice for that. This is kind of an awkward card in that it gives the player who wields it a lot more power. And then it gives them a lot less power because it's a random minion, of course. So we can be seeing, hey, I played this and then I summon Archmage Antonidas, Archmage dies, but now I don't have like the guarantee of like duplicate of 2 Archmages in my hand. I don't have the mirror entity of like, oh, he accidentally played a 3/6, he accidentally played his Yeti, whatever, It's a really weird card. And something that's going to be interesting, it's definitely not a card that you want to play on turn 3. It's a card you want to play on like turn 5 or 6, when people are starting to play their Tharsans, their Sylvanuses. Similar to how you would play Mirror Entity, right? Like you don't want to play Mirror Entity on turn 3 if you can avoid it, unless you're really trying to force a tempo play. So Effigy's basically in a weird spot is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's unplayable, of course. It's a strong card. It's just Mage already has so many strong cards. Like, they're one of the best classes for a reason, And I'd rather just play some of the common secrets compared to this, honestly. We'll see. I'm not expecting much. Fallen Hero 3/2. So something we've continuously seen from the 2-mana slot is absolute insanity. And this is definitely one of those cards where it's kind of crazy. It's your hero power deals 1 extra damage. In a weird way, it's not crazy because of the fact that all of the 2-drops are insane. Think of Knife Juggler, think of Brewmaster, think of Mech Warper, in that they all have really strong effects and they don't have stat losses for them, is what I'm referring to. Mad Scientist is like the only played card that I can think of that has a really strong effect, but it has a really, really strong effect, So we'll see how this turns out. In terms of like tempo, I'm not expecting this to get into tempo mage, and I kind of like that because what does it do? It basically gives you the Shadow Form effect, right? It gives you a temporary 2-mana Holy Smite every single turn that you can opt to use. That's a weird analogy, but that's basically free Holy Smite, right? And free Holy Smite in terms of raw value is pretty good, but in terms of tempo it can be pretty slow, which is kind of how they get away with making this crazy card. In my mind, definitely, this is going to be something I'm just going to throw into all my mage decks because why not? But it is also kind of a boring card, isn't it? I'm sort of putting down all of the cards at this point, aren't I? Yeah. Should be fun to get it out on the board and to have that value play coming out. Otherwise, not too spectacular. I mean, I'm sure we've all had those days when we're trying to build decks and we look at our curve and we're like, oh god, there's already 8 2-drops? What the heck? Oh man, I already have like 12 2-drops. What am I gonna do with the rest of my deck, right? Like, 2-drops are just so good in this game. And that's not gonna change anytime soon, apparently. So we'll see how much this card gets used. It can be really strong, of course, but I'm not expecting too much. Frost Giant, this is going to be a fun one. I can tell you that right away. But it's also going to be a hard one to get off. Like, how do I put this? My worry with Frost Giant is that it's just gonna kind of not matter. It's kind of the same thing with Volcanic Lumberer. If you played with GVG, Volcanic Lumberer is a 9/7, and it's a 9/7 that has taunt, and you can reduce to ridiculously low cost for insane tempo plays, right? And so when you're making those insane tempo turns, that's based on something that's kind of hard to do, which is usually kill 4 or 5 minions at a time for Volcanic Lumberer. With Frost Giant, you have basically a more guaranteed, a more easily controlled method of getting him lower, and it gives a lot more power to the player, which is why I'm really excited for this card. But getting him down to 4, 3, 2 mana might not be the best thing, because yes, I should clarify, by the way, when it says cost 1 less for each time you use your hero power, that includes the entirety of the game. It doesn't matter if it's in your deck or in your hand, that's always going to be lower. So if you use your hero power 10 times at turn 15, it'll be 0 mana. So sure, that's amazing, right? But I don't know if I would ever want to play this for anything less than 4 mana, because at that point, if the game's lasting that long and you're like fatiguing, there might be better cards to be playing than Frost Giant, you know? Like, I'd much rather play Ragnaros Sylvanas, Thaurissan, Hex Sprint, you know? Even Molten Giant might be a little bit better because it guarantees an answer versus aggressive decks, whereas this doesn't, right? I like that it gives the player power decision making. It's just, I'm expecting very, very little. I'm not expecting anyone to like pick up this card and like handlock at all. And people have talked about, hey, this will be fun in handlock. They get 2 more giants, that's OP. And yeah, but your handlock's already such a strong deck, and I feel like they've got exactly the amount of like strong threats they want in terms of Twilight Drake, Mountain Giant, Molten Giant, Dr. Boom, Mal'Ganis, whatever they run nowadays, you know? That they won't need Frost Giant, and if they did, I don't know if they'd run it just because Mountain Giant's easier to get off, Molten Giant's easier to get off, you know? Just... It's easier to control, basically, and that's not good enough. Yeah. Well, I say that, it's easier to control in a way that's hard to pull off, if that makes sense. You're generally not going to be hero powering 10 times by turn 10. We'll see how it goes. It'll be interesting. It is an incentive to use your hero power, which follows the theme of that Kodo Rider. This card's interesting. And by interesting, I mean immediately, I think it's insane, actually. Definitely Mage Inspire is going to be the first thing to pick this up. Because, let's go back up. You remember these cards, Maiden of the Lake and Coldara Drake. Imagine you use Thaurissan on these two and this. So, we have 3 mana, 5 mana, and 5 mana. What's going to end up happening at some point is that there's going to be a deck similar to Grim Patron that involves these Inspire effects and other Inspire effects, like, say, Nexus Champion, like, say, heck, even Frost Giant, where they're going to get these crazy ping combos with the Mage Hero Power, and because the Mage Hero Power is technically always useful, unlike, say, Warrior Hero Power or Priest Hero Power, or even Shaman Hero Power. This is going to be insane. I just noticed there's like cards missing that I want to talk about. Might pull them up later, might not. It's possible that there are some cards that have been data mined, like pulled from the game, there are some cards that have been announced on other servers that haven't reached North America yet, so I'm going to try and stick to the Hearthstone thing. So the thing about Kodo Rider, 3/5 is kind of weak in terms of stats, right, for 6 mana, but it's kind of the thing I said about Sky Captain Crag, is that 4/6, 5 mana, honestly not the worst thing in the world. 3/6 for 6 mana, yes, is much, much worse, right? Again, we come back to the big levers problem of 1 mana is a huge deal in Hearthstone just because of how the numbers work. But at the same time, what are you really gonna do to kill this guy, right? If on turn 10 you play these two, right? You kind of have to make a judgment call of, okay, which one do I fireball? And from there, you kind of have to just throw shit on the board and hope you can kill it. One of the Kodo Rider spawns next turn, or you hope you kill Kodar Drake because you killed Kodo Rider, whatever, right? And at that point, like when you have two really strong threats, especially when you protect them from something like Wii Spell Stopper, which again will go up in value significantly after this patch. Kodo Rider can be insane. Like, I imagine you hero power twice, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, suddenly you have a whole board full of these guys, and these guys are much harder to remove than the Grim Patrons, right? So basically we have new Grim Patron, but probably with better animation. I've yet to see the Inspire animation. I don't know if that'll be a big issue, but this card can be insane. It has a lot of scary potential. And even though the stats look really bad, I actually think they're really strong. It's definitely a card that if I get my hands on, I'll mess around with. Especially if I get combo pieces. Lock and Load. I think this is a pretty straightforward card. Everyone said the same thing about it that I'm going to say, in that it's a card that encourages hunter control. And I mean, like, not mid-range. I mean, reach 10 mana before you play this. And I'm not expecting a lot out of it. Hunter is kind of stuck with really strong early game cards like Unleash the Hounds. And not just early game, but also early game and aggressive cards like Animal Companion, like Ill Command. That's really, really powerful and really, really cheap. And their hero power just naturally, like, doesn't do anything on the board. So Control Hunter really has its work cut out for it. Now, Lock and Load has sort of been called this incredible OP card, but you can say that about a lot of late game cards, and I feel like Lock and Load really is a mid to late game card. Granted, you do have some pretty cheap spells in Hunter, and those cheap spells can be used as like controlling spells, certainly. It's just really weird to fit it with the current Hunter cards, I feel. So hopefully they do more than just this one card to do Hunter control. We'll see how it turns out, of course, but it'll be interesting. I still think Hunter will be the deck where you see it, or the class where you walk into it during ladder and you're like, okay, this is definitely going to be something aggro. It might be mid-range, it might be Control Hunter, or it might be just Face Hunter, straight up aggro. But they're definitely going to be a strong early game because that's kind of how Hunter best wins. And even with good value cards like Unleash the Hounds and Lock and Load, they're going to need more than just that to make Control Hunter work, I feel. So we'll see how it goes. Oh no! Oh, that's cool. Whoa, I can pull up like stats and stuff. Okay, we're doing that next episode, guys. Okay, I'm like... Okay. Lowly Squire. Wow, this has gone on a while. I need to like get a format for these, or like a timer. Lowly Squire, straightforward 1-drop. It makes use of the Inspire mechanic. I'm kind of worried about him because he looks kind of funky, right? Like, he's a funky little card and I like him for that, but I expect him to not see any play because the thing about 1-drops is that even if it was like a 1 mana 2/2 straight up, right? Not very good, is it? How do I say this? Do you know War Golem? Or not a War Golem, but the Warrior 1 mana 1/3 mech with the Enrage +1 attack. That's not played, not because it can be good. Against the 2/3 minion, that 1/3 trades, but it's super conditional and it dies, and like late game it doesn't do anything, early game it doesn't do that much. And so it kind of just isn't played. Zoo gets away with a lot of minions like that, like the 1/3 Void Caller, but Zoo's a much different circumstance where you need a lot of 1-drops to make the deck work. And generally I don't expect the Inspire decks to be needing 1-drops, and if they are, they're probably going to find cards other than Lowly Squire. The thing about Lowly Squire, even if you are using your hero power on turn 2, I'm assuming the mage hero power, of course, because that's where I, at least from the cards released, expect Inspire to go. It's kind of like a weaker Zombie Chow, just honestly. I'd much rather have Zombie Chow. I'd much rather have Flame Imp. I'd much rather have even Argent Squire in certain conditions, right? Like, the scaling attack isn't going to matter later on. Yeah, maybe you can pull off some crazy Kaldara Drake combos and get this to a 5/2. And if you do, whoop-de-doo, good for you, you made use of it. I'm probably going to mess with it for 1 and 2 decks, and then forget about it for 6 months. So, oops. Next up, we have the Totem Golem and the Tuskar Totemic. Tuskar Totemic, battle cry, summon any random totem. Totem Golem, overload 1. Totem Golem is actually a card that I was expecting to come for a while for Shaman. And it's because Shaman is kind of in a bad situation in the meta, in that they're basically aggro or nothing. They don't have enough good control cards, and they have a lot of good aggressive cards like Bloodlust, Lava Burst, cheap removal, high damage spells like Crackle, that sort of push them towards being aggressive. And they have good mech cards as well. So Mech Shaman is definitely a thing. I don't know if that's not aggro, that's more mid-rangey, but Totem Golem is a card I've expected to see for a while. A 3/4 overload 1, just generally a strong card that fits in the overload theme so well. It follows the theme of 2-drops being absolutely insane, but it does it in a way that makes sense. It's like, yeah, overload 1, next turn you're not going to play a 3-mana card. Granted, 3-mana cards aren't as strong as 2-drops just by virtue of how they've made the cards in general, but whatever, you know. Now what makes Totem Golem really interesting is that it's a totem, obviously, so it interacts with Totemic Might, it interacts with this guy, it interacts with this guy, and so this guy's going to be kind of an auto-include in the Totem Shaman deck, but I like it because it's also just a solid trade-off card. It's like, I'm making the choice of like basically giving up a 3-mana play, 3-mana Harvest Golem, a 3-mana whatever my turn 3 play was, in favor of Totem Golem, which is fine because there really aren't that many great Shaman 3-drops at the moment. It's basically Lightning Storm and maybe Feral Spirits, which isn't going to be that good anymore with this guy, in all honesty. We'll see how it turns out, but that's obviously really strong. Next up we have Tuskar Totemic, which is summon any random totem. Fun fact, that includes Totem Golem. It's a 1 in 8 chance to summon Totem Golem. There's currently 8 totems in the game, not including Tuskar Totemic or Draconite Totem Carver or Thunder Buff Valiant. So these guys don't get buffed by Totemic Might. Definitely a fun card, and there's a lot of value to be gained, even if it does summon just like a shitty 0-2 healing totem, right? Even then, at least you sort of got your 3-4 in stats and some added effect. So this is just a base value strong card, which I'm expecting to see. I'm not sure how good it's going to be. I'm really not. Because even if you get your draw card totem, it's kind of easy to remove at 2 health. Something people don't realize is that 2 health and 3 health has started to become a big deal. Not because of cards like Maiden of the Lake, but because we've already had a lot of ways to deal 2 damage easily already, just built into the basic set and the Goblins vs. Gnomes set. But now we have a lot of easy ways to deal 4 damage, but we've not actually gotten a lot of easy ways to deal 3 damage, which is kind of awkward. Especially in like the 3 mana slot and the 4 mana slot where we're getting Gnomish Inventors, we're putting 2/4 minions like the Dragon Kid, who can be a 3/5 of course, but we generally don't expect it to be. You have Harvest Golem, you get just minions that aren't going to be a 3 attack in general. So inherently this is kind of weaker for being 2 health. We'll see how it is in the end, but this card might be the weakest one in the Totem deck, but it's definitely going to be fun to use in the Totem deck at the very least. It's a value card, and hey, I can see the value cards working out. So yeah, that's my review of the Totems. Again, Hearthstone is where I got this. In fact, maybe I can... Oh, that's a little bit glitchy. That messed up my overlay. Whatever, we don't need cards. Hey, look at that face. My name's Nujum. Let me know what your theories on the cards are. There are more cards that we know about, but they're not on this list. So as they're officially announced, I will go over them. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye. Oh wait, I just saw... I'm just running into sort of the Hearthstone, the us.battle.net website about this. Interesting, okay. Yeah, see you guys in my next video. Bye! Hey, so here's a little bit of extra. I found out on the us.battle.net they have the official release constantly updating, so I figured, hey, there's only 4 more cards, let's review them. Silverhand Regent, Aussie Manager, North Sea Kraken, and Justicar Trueheart. Oh, and there's Garrison Commander. Garrison Commander, strong Inspire card, can use your hero power twice. This seems like a really strong mid-game card, and it's kind of like much better than Kaldara Drake, just because you can use it and like logically use your hero power twice so much earlier, which is going to be a lot of fun. Definitely I expect to see this guy way more than Kaldara Drake. The Inspire deck is really going to build itself in a way. It's going to be Garrison Commander into Maiden of the Lake, into maybe Nexus, Champion Surad, into whatever Inspire mechanics you really want to put in, and that depends on your deck. It depends on what class you're playing. We'll see how it goes, but definitely that's going to be a needed card. And at the base value, it's really strong. 2/3 again. I think 2/3 is much stronger than 3/2 at this point because there are so many easy ways to deal 2 damage. So yeah. Silverhand Regent, 3/3 Inspire, summon a 1/1 Recruit. This one I've seen, it seems okay, but it needs to stay on the board, which is a problem, even though it is 3 health. It's 3 mana, which I don't really like. I'd much rather this be a 2/4, and then I'd be like, yeah, this card's crazy. But 3/3 is still like alright stats, and definitely getting the Inspire off, like, it makes it pretty strong. Yeah, it's like, hey, Silverhand recruits, no other class is really going to make use of it other than Paladin. And even if they did, it's like a base value okay card. Definitely this card's most interesting feature is that you can use it to sort of flood the board in Shaman. Which is what I'm sort of expecting it to be used as. Like, I kind of want to make a Bloodlust Shaman deck when I look at this. And I might make that, because it's a common card, so we're definitely going to get it within like your first 10 packs, right? So, yeah, it'll be fun to mess around with. Definitely this one's going to be sort of hype for things like Savage Horde Druid and stuff. Yeah, I'm going to enjoy using this one. Justicar Truehearth is a weird one. Maybe you should watch other videos on this because I've already extended this video way too long. I apologize for that, but basically, it's a shadow farm. It's a good value card, but it's kind of late game oriented. Like, even on turn 6, this card isn't exactly very strong. So I think this is going to be more of the control deck rather than the mid-rangey deck, which I don't know how good control decks will be. I think I'd much rather see mid-rangey cards. Same with North Sea Kraken. I really like it as a common card. It's like, hey, we have big cards for you too. And I really like seeing cards in the common slot in general. Especially cards that don't just straight up suck. You know, that's always nice. North Sea Kraken, people have argued, does really just suck. I would argue at the baseline it's okay. And I might play it once in a while just because it's kind of cool to be like, ha, Kraken, right? So, that's my entire reason, by the way. Just like, ha, Kraken. Play that with my friends. It'll be a good time. Probably it's like 9 mana is kind of a bit too much to play. It's kind of like the Force Tank Max, in that it's great for people like me who aren't going to be buying a whole lot of packs, but otherwise it's like kind of meh, so whatever. Coliseum Manager is probably the most interesting one. Return this minion to your hand with your Inspire. This is what I was actually hoping to see when they announced Inspire, honestly. Something that was honestly more of a defect than a positive effect. Obviously, it's something you control because it's your hero power, but regardless, return this minion to your hand. Possibly good, possibly bad, honestly. You might want to use your hero power, and you might be forced to just be like, hey, 2 damage to face hero power, get this back on my hand, and I'll play it again, because why not, you know? It's a weird card, but it could be fun, you know? Certainly getting the renew value of, like, deal 2 damage and then calling this back to your hand is entertaining. I don't know if it'll necessarily be good. I know it'll be a lot of fun. I probably won't mess around with it too much because it's kind of like, I'd much rather have my minions stick on the board and do stuff and sort of make the tempo plays than having to constantly replay the same minion over and over. So I'm not expecting to mess with it at all. Anyways, yeah, that's all of the cards. We're currently expecting to see the next one released. Hold on. The next one released is going to be, champion a card. Which cards do you want to see? I picked this one because it looks more voodoo-y, I guess. That sounds really weird. Anyways, yeah. If you want to check it out, us.battle.net. Hey, bye.